Dr. Evangelia Fraguli. I'm academic at the University of Dundee. I would like to thank all the organizers of the Academy of Business and Retail Management and to congratulate them for this London conference, which is one of the most important events per year. My paper is focusing on the leadership effectiveness for managing change and which is the role of emotions. As we know that organizations in every sector of the workforce are faced with mounting pressure to change. Individuals and organizations alike must learn how to adapt to change in order to sustain their competitive advantage in an increasingly diverse world. For many people, learning to change is an anxiety provoking process that becomes deliberating fear. The increasing rate of change in market competition and substitution is a norm today. However, how leaders manage the change still seems to be a big challenge. Scholars and leaders alike have for long acknowledged intellectually the importance for this transformation. However, fewer studies have been conducted regarding the effective management of change. Change can be exciting and stimulating in any organization, but it is often met with fear and resistance. And this paper focuses on the impact of employees' emotions on organization change following a qualitative methodological approach through critical literature review of the role of emotions during change and the significance of emotional intelligence in leading effective change. Let's start with the theoretical background regarding the issues. And we know that Kurt Lewin in 1948 developed one of the earliest and most influential theories of organization change, which offers three-stage approach to change, described as the unfreezing, moving, and refreezing model. For Lewin, change is a process in which changes of knowledge and beliefs, changes of values and standards, changes of emotional attachments and needs, and changes of everyday conduct occur not piecemeal and independently of each other, but within the framework of the individual's total life in the group. The process of change, according to Lewin, affects a person in three particular ways. First, the cognitive structure, like individual perceptions and personal meanings. Second, the balances and values, social status, for example, social norms and group dynamics. Three, motoring action, for example, degree of personal control over physical and social movement. Lewin posts that an individual sense of belongingness to a group is a key component towards creating and accepting a new belief structure and value system in the workplace. The emotional connections and the relations experience of workplace bonds facilitate the central sense of group belongingness that promotes innovative learning and change. Lewin further suggests that the change process is not a simple linear progression from beginning to end. Acquiring the correct knowledge of the intended change and even first-hand experience and physical action may not be sufficient for leading complete transformation. Lewin argues that it is one thing to be motivated, another to transform motivation into concrete goals and into stabilizing these goals in a way which would carry the individual through the actual competition and completion of the work. The complete constellation of the entire social and emotional field of the individual is of great importance within the context of the organization, which have to be considered, organized, and reorganized through meaningful learning and leadership in order for change to be successful. Change is usually concerned with the shifting or evolving of one phase to another. It usually entails the dismantling of previous structure and the creation of new ones. Motivations for change may be a response to the changes in its external environment, a need to upgrade its internal structure for better performance, or to preempt the introduction for a new product or service in the market. Zvika, in her 2016 study, Relational Analysis of Emotional Intelligence and Change Management, notes how change is generally stressful for the people involved as it naturally asserts in a source of feeling pressure, uncertainty, frustration, isolation, and anxiety. These emotions tend to be reflected through resistance towards the change the leader aims to implement. In past, however, at times resistance to change was seen as an inherent trait in human. It was believed that people do not like to change and be futuristic, let's say, or so it is the duty of leaders to force change on their resistant employee. However, the adoption of sociology and psychological theories in the study of organization change gave another twist to employee resistance during change. Specifically, the aspect of emotions was introduced into the study of employee resistance to change, and change leadership literature became focused with unveiling the role of emotion during organization change. A substantial connection was established between employee emotions and resistance to change. It was discovered that positive emotions contribute largely to a successful organization change, while negative emotions leads to its demise. Contrary to the traditional belief that resistance to change is an inherent human behavior, resistance is a reaction arising from negative emotion which can be linked to fear, confusion, or uncertainty, whereas this reaction, if not well managed, makes change difficult or unattainable. This research therefore examines emotions as they affect the success of organization change and the required skills needed by leaders to turn these emotions into an instrument of change. This paper aims to review literature on the influence emotional intelligence has on leaders in order to successfully manage organization change initiatives. This paper establishes the connection between organization change and emotions and highlights the role of emotions in organization performance during change. Then it highlights the emotional intelligence needed to account for such reactions. Finally, it shows how emotional intelligence can be used to motivate change and also goes the success for the implement change. Is, however, organization change an emotional experience? Organization change processes that create an improved employee performance, elevated employee morale, continuous learning, and increased profits are possible relate to organization performance. Leading organization change depends on learning, and the type of learning necessary for change to successfully occur must be transformative. One requires particular emotional strength to navigate the transformation process. Therefore, leaders must also demonstrate a basic level of emotional intelligence to lead the learning process for organization change. Goleman and Burns articulate the importance of emotional, secure leadership for creating and sustaining change, suggesting that people need appreciation, recognition, and a feeling of accomplishment, and the confidence that people who are important to them believe in change has become a constant factor in organization today. Um, Armenakis and Harris in 2004 and other scholars see organization change as very important in today's evolving and highly competitive world for various reasons. Some see this as essential in gaining competitive advantage, while some others see this as an inherent organization function to survive and remain successful in business. Although the topic about the need for organization change and how to lead one has received a lot of scholarship research shows that high number of unsuccessful organization change um, really takes place very often nowadays in organizations. Consequently, leadership scholars and practitioners have begun to look at ways at which leaders can effectively influence the success of organization change. Employees' resistance to change was considered by conventional human resource practitioners as a form of conflict between top management and employee, but subsequently an aspect of sociology and psychology was adopted for better understanding of resistant organization change. As a result, researchers began to see resistance as a natural and emotional response to change, which is born out of the fear of uncertainty or out of the belief that change is unnecessary. There has also been indirect evidence that the outcome of the emotional experiences during organization change can persist for long periods even after the change has been made. Thus, recent literature is attempting to explain the need for leaders to capture the minds and heart of their employees, as well as make good use of their emotions in order to get the right attitude needed for the change process. Emotional reactions to change are a normal reaction to the real and perceived disruption that accompanies organization change. Successful change leaders know that understanding and addressing the mixed emotions that employees may experience can help employees feel motivated and committed to achieving their goals, implementing change, and realizing a new vision for the organization. Emotions are psychological and biological responses that affect people's minds, people's bodies, and people's motivation. Emotions influence people's perception of events and how they make sense of the world around us. Emotions are useful. They help people evaluate the significance of events and assess the consequences. Recent studies on leadership during change have established a connection between employees' emotions and their response to change. These studies classify emotions as either positive or negative. While positive emotion is mostly associated with feelings such as joy and excitement, negative emotions, on the other hand, is linked with feelings such as grief and fear. In the case of organization change, positive emotion is seen as a feeling of confidence and trust about change. It is believed to help employees cope with complexity and stress during the change period, whereas negative emotion is considered as a feeling of mistrust, insecurity, and uncertainty, leading to passiveness during change. A worthy body of research indicates that positive emotions for the organization change fosters into pro-social behaviors such as supporting and cooperating with others. Thus, organization members experiencing positive emotions are highly likely to demonstrate supportive and cooperative behaviors during and long after the organization change. Alternative negative emotions can tend to surface through various forms of resistance behavior, such as retraction from the change initiatives or malicious sabotaging for the change to cause it to fail. Agents of organization change must be skilled in recognizing the signs and symptoms of resistance in order to facilitate successful change. More importantly, agents should also be knowledgeable in the fact that resistance is a natural part of the change process. Curtis and White in 2002 suggest that change occurring in the absence of resistance is not change at all. Rather, it is merely an illusion of actual change. The fear of change permeates all levels of the organization, and indeed, a great deal of resistance to change can be found among the management ranks. Long-standing managers and executives often make attempts to undermine the change program by either not adapting their own behavior or by allowing employees to continue to behave in ways that also threaten the integrity of the change initiative. Managers and executives feel like they have the most to lose and often struggle with their perceived ability to perform the new organization process. So it is very important leaders to facilitate organization change. Change triggers strong emotions which may promote and tunnel vision, narrowing people's productive choices. As leaders in the learning and talent development field, emotional intelligence is essential to how someone helps others cope with change, such as organizational restructuring, new technologies introduction, automation, mergers and acquisition, globalization, new sources of competition, and changing business models. According to Daniel Coleman and Richard Boyaziz, Um, Contrary to the general belief that strategy, vision, or powerful ideas make great deal leaders, being an effective leader is quite primal. It requires leading through emotions. George in 2002 argues that emotional intelligence enables leaders to motivate and convert team members into an instrument of change. According to the author, leaders need to have the following characteristics: to be self-aware so that they can be able to appraise the emotions of others without prejudice. This helps to establish relationship with others and empathy. Second, to develop skills in understanding different emotions. Leaders should be able to understand different emotions regarding work processes. Third, to be able to regulate emotions, to get the best attitude and behavior that would trigger creativity and commitment. Fourth, to be able to manage their own emotions and the emotions of others. The emotion of leader displays as a great effect on their employees, and this is very important to be considered when effective leadership is measured in organization. Of critical importance to managing most change strategies is the progress measuring efforts made after the change has been introduced. There has been ample attention given to the tools leaders can use to manage the change, with large consulting companies such as McKinsey and other charging significant amounts for such strategies. Less addressed, however, is how leaders can exercise emotional intelligence to gauge the success of the change. Um, Query Inchit, in his emotional capability, emotional intelligence, and radical change analysis, highlights how leaders can learn from the outcomes of the changes they enact, from the receptivity stemming from behavioral change. In Inchit goes on to highlight how emotion provides the primary feedback mechanism that alerts the leader that various set goals are not being achieved, and this in turn motivates behavior. The study, which aims to present a multi-level theory of emotion change, notes the importance of gauging receptivity and judging mobilization when considering making organization change. At the organization level, instead, um, defines receptivity as the organization's members' willingness to collectively consider proposed changes and to recognize the legitimacy of such proposals. At the organization level, mobilization refers to the process of rallying and propelling different segments of the organization to undertake joint action and realize common change goals. In addition to gauging change, emotionally intelligent leaders are also able to set challenging goals and take calculated risks during the change process. Along with the management of emotional intelligence, leaders need to take into account the organizational culture when managing changes. Often, in order to be successful, they don't consider detailed elements of the organization culture. The emotional connection of employee to culture is further highlighted by Khan, who notes that the relationship is deep seated, largely unconscious, and ultimately connected to the soul development of identity and have emotional content. Thus, a change in the related culture can lead to an emotional response such as anxiety and grieving. An emotionally intelligent leader could ignore the importance of the organization corporate culture when managing change and effectively offend those who relate to it. However, understanding the emotional connection the organization's employees have with the culture will allow an emotionally intelligent leader to communicate favorable and supported change strategies. Therefore, it is imperative for a leader to be aware of the organizational culture as it can assist in the effective management of change, especially given the noted link between culture and emotional intelligence. A leader displaying competent emotional intelligence will thus be able to ponder the change strategy in a culture appeasing manner, thus increasing the likelihood of success. So concluding, change can trigger strong emotions which may promote tunnel visioneering, productive choices. And the present research shows that regardless of the quality of the change plan a leader might have, if the team he relies on to carry that change isn't committed emotionally to do so, then the plan could meet its demise. Commitment to change in this case refers to the degree of organization's willingness and desire to support the change. Affective commitment to change refers to the desire to support the change based on a belief in its inherent benefits. Normative commitment to change is the support for the change resulting from a sense of needing to reciprocate positive treatment received from the organization. The early effective communication and motivation can positively impact both forms of commitment to the change, and research has proven that early levels of commitment tend to last over time. This is critical for a leader to demonstrate emotional intelligence in identifying the applicable emotional language to motivate his team to carry this change. So when the leader considers the emotions of the people and the importance uh, for implementing change, then this leader will be effective when this emotional connection with the employees is considered, whereas he or she is ineffective when does not apply his emotional or her emotional intelligence when introducing change. Thank you very much.